Home is where connections are made, memories are formed, and ideas are born. And no one knows home better than NFM. Thanks for tuning in to I Am Home, the podcast that goes deeper than trends and dives into what it means to make your house a home.
This is I Am Home, the Home Life Best Life podcast. Welcome. We're so happy that you're here. I'm Tyler Weiskup, joined by my co-host, who's as multi-talented as a mural in motion. It's Becca Sudbeck.
Hi, Tyler.
Hi, Becca. And our other co-host, who's as inspiring and innovative as the misplaced eyes of a Picasso. It's Hilary Waltonath.
So flattered.
Hey. It's high praise, really.
Yes.
This month, our theme is doing it this year. And today's topic is wall treatments. It's a perfect episode if you're looking to get some creative inspiration for transforming a room. Maybe you're just looking for a room space to feel more like you. And Hillary's going to be our wall-to-wall guide. So before we get to that, though, let me tell you why we're even doing this podcast. And that's because NFM is more than just your everything home store. We're in the business of improving lifestyles because your home life should be your best life. And you can learn more at nfm.com. Okay, Hilary, what do you have for us today? What's the way in here?
Well, as always, I'm so excited to be presenting on trend. And Anne reached out and she shared the theme for the month was doing it this year, from bare walls to beautiful home design. And I was like, oh, we have to talk about wall treatments. And over the past year or so, we've talked a lot about trend in a number of different areas. But we haven't dedicated an episode necessarily like what to do with the walls of your home, which I think is a very overwhelming thing for most.
Yeah.
And they really set the tone for your space. So if you're feeling a little uninspired by your current walls, whether they're plain white or you're ready to refresh something existing, you're in luck. We're going to share some of the wall treatment trends for 2025. And I'm confident that at least one of them will spark some creativity for you in your home. So kind of condense, we could talk about a million, but I kind of condense it down into 4 different trends or approaches you could take. And I kind of put them in order of commitment, starting with the simplest, quickest, lowest effort updates. Cool. And then we'll build towards the more complex, intricate, more of like a full commit in your home. So kind of gauging what you're wanting to commit to. So obvious starting point is paint. That's the lowest effort, lowest cost. And the trend we're seeing is colors are getting really saturated. So they're deeper, moodier than they have been previously, and seeing like more bold choices with these like saturated colors. One of them being like deeper earthy tones. People are really gravitating to those colors, and I think they feel safer. So thinking of like warm oranges, tans, creams. We've talked a lot about we went really hard for gray, but that's feeling a little cold. We're craving a little warmth. So naturally colors are warming up too. Even seeing like some really cool like ochre yellow paint colors. So think of like the color gold without like the metallic in it. And then like chocolate brown's very much having a moment. In fact, 2025 or Pantone just came out with their 2025 color of the year. It's called Mocha Mousse. So I've got some visuals for us here.
We're reviewing them right now.
Yes. So kind of in the top middle is Mocha Mousse. And it's this kind of rich chocolatey brown color, but it's got some like pinky undertones.
I feel like it's like a mauve-y brown. Yeah, definitely.
Which is interesting because I think like in I think we're going to, I can't believe this, but I think the next kind of phase we're going to get into some like purples. And so I think that's influencing this.
That like reminds me of like the early 90s.
Like the purple or like the mocha mousse?
No, I mean, but like like the where it's going. Like I feel
Pinky
like it's
undertones.
Yeah.
I mean, all the kids are wearing like the 90s clothes.
Yes, it makes sense.
Why are you stealing our style?
Yeah. See, we were cool back then.
Yes. Yeah. So you can see some of these like earthier tones here. There's like a chocolate brown in the top left. In the top right is a really pretty rust color.
Mhm.
So even just kind of like looking at this, looking at these rooms, they feel really cozy,
I
right?
agree. Yeah, and I feel like I've been seeing this like in a
Mhm.
lot of things also, and yeah, it just gives it a completely different, warmer
Mhm.
vibe.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And the other interesting thing, kind of following apparel trends and fashion trends, is red. Red has been a trending color over the last year, and it's making its way into the home naturally. And what we've seen happen is it's getting deeper as well, like burgundy,
Mhm.
oxblood,
Mhm.
crimson, black cherry, merlot. So kind of in the top right, there's like a whole kitchen
Yeah.
painted in kind of a deep burgundy color. And like, who would have thought like the red accent wall would be making a comeback? But it's really beautiful, and it's really rich. And um Pinterest also does their kind of like predictions. I know we talked about that with dorms
Yeah.
earlier in the fall, but they did their Pinterest predicts, and one of their trends they predicted is cherry coated. And it's one of them that's that like cross category between apparel, fashion, and the home. So we're certainly going to see more of this like deep burgundy, kind of winey colors. And then of course, like your classic rich hues, like blues and greens are feeling more comfortable to people, and those aren't going anywhere. Those are certainly sticking around. And these like jewel box or jewel tone colors are certainly making a comeback. We went hard for that a few years ago when like
Mhm. Yeah.
velvets really came into the home. So seeing some like jewel tones, which I think are going to be really fun for people that are like a little bit more adventurous with color.
Do you think, like, okay, so color of the year is a brown. Is this
Mhm.
like the sexiest choice that we could have made with like a Pantone color of the
I
year?
mean, I don't know if I would call it brown. I know it's like it's a
Uh-huh.
version of brown, but it's
You're oversimplifying.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Okay. All
You're
right.
oversimplifying. It's a really complex color, I would say. And
Yeah.
and what's interesting, if you just start Googling Pantone color of the year, you'll see it in a number of different applications. Like this would be really pretty on like a full sofa
Mhm.
color. If you're
Mhm.
not wanting gray, but you don't
Yeah,
want something too
it's still
dark.
kind of neutral.
Mhm. Yeah, and it could work in like a
Yeah,
nice practical like performance fabric, or like something
yeah,
more luxe if you're interested in like a velvet or
yeah.
something more plush, or
Mhm.
like I know we've talked a lot about boucle, but
Yeah.
that would be really pretty. Some of those textured fabrics would be really pretty in that
Mhm.
color.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it looks great in these pictures. Looks great in these pictures. I don't know. I feel like people are going to get this wrong. I think like they'll look at it and they're just going to like put brown on the wall, and they might not, they're just going to be like, well, Pantone led me astray.
Mhm.
I feel like it's hard to do brown where it doesn't feel
Mhm.
dated.
Yeah, and undertones
I will agree
matter.
with that.
Yeah, yeah, and you've certainly got to see it in your space. Like there's like room visualizers with paint, or you can certainly buy samples, or it's really convenient now. You can buy like a peel and stick
Mm.
sample, because your lighting in your
Yeah,
room and the
makes such a
surroundings are
difference.
going to make
Yeah.
a huge difference with this too. So it may not be the right shade for you. That's totally acceptable. But you can like draw some inspiration from that and find maybe a shade
Yeah.
that fits.
Like the idea of like
Mhm.
gravitating towards earth, I feel like
Mhm.
that's sound, because
Mhm.
like you said, that's like you can kind of get behind that, and it does feel a little
Mhm.
cozier, and it's something where you're adding color versus like being stuck in
Yes.
white and gray and
Yep.
in that world. So I
Yep.
feel like that's a smarter play here. And
Yeah.
if you can kind of like get into that mode with looking at all these,
Mhm.
do you have like suggestions when people are like, okay, maybe I had a whole gray house, like
Mhm.
you just swap it, like you just go brown now, or like what, how do you help people, I guess, when like thinking about like taking these trends and
Mhm.
putting
Yeah.
them into their home?
You don't necessarily have to like course correct and or like overcorrect, I guess. There's a lot of like, I don't know if you've heard the term grayish, like
Mhm.
there's certainly a range in that too. And like gray is still a neutral that can work with other colors. Like this brown is on like the cooler tone brown, so that is one that would certainly work. Chocolate mousse would certainly work um with
Grays, yeah.
grays, or even like whites can be warm, creams can be warm. It's it'll be helpful to look at kind of like the undertones in the color to kind of pair back with things. But like if you've got a lot of gray, you've got a nice neutral base.
Mm-hmm.
You can start experimenting with color a little bit.
And please do.
Yes. You'll be happy you did. I promise. Promise.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready for the next wall treatment trend?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So this one is very buzzy right now, but it's called color drenching. So not
We've
only
talked a little bit about it on the podcast.
Mhm.
yes. So not only are we like committing to a color, we are full commit.
Yes.
Drenching the whole room in color. So that means painting the walls, the trim, even the ceiling. I don't know if you've heard of the ceiling referred to as the fifth wall, but like before we were taught, like leave that white and airy. It helps open up the space. But and another case of like overcorrecting with too open concept. You know, we're creating that like intimacy or cozy feeling in the home, and doing something like color drenching can certainly do that. And if it's like one shade is too much, you can experiment with shades. The bedroom in the top right is this kind of rusty corally color, and there's varying shades in there too, so that creates a really cozy, comfortable space. It's a lot of color, but it's done in kind of a soothing way. Or to the left of that is a photo of a hallway. Like, so maybe you don't want to commit to a full room, but you want to like jazz up the hallway a little bit. A hallway could be a fun space, or of course like powder rooms are a nice space to kind of experiment.
And this one's all green if you're just listening to us, and it looks cool.
The
Really
door,
does.
I really like the doors. Yeah.
So if you've
way
got
the
a
art
hallway
is.
where it's like doors and doors and doors and doors, like that's a lot of like disruption or clutter, and like isn't the most sightly. But like by painting that all one color, that helps that kind of like disappear, and it helps just kind of like smooth out the space a little bit. So like great solution there if you're trying to like dress up a hallway that just feels kind of meh.
I like it.
Yeah.
Looks cool.
Yeah. And so like even painting like all the trim work or your fireplace, there's a kitchen in this like ochre yellow I was talking about. The cabinets are painted the same color as the walls. And like it's traditionally be like, that's a crazy idea, but like it just makes
a different mood. Like it really does.
Yeah, it helps everything just kind of like blend really seamlessly. Yeah. Okay. You ready for the next one?
I'm down with this. I feel saturated paint colors, color drenching.
Yeah. Fun, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So stepping it up a notch is like ceiling specific treatments. We talked about color drenching, painting the ceiling the same color as your walls, but this is about doing something unexpected on your ceiling. And they're becoming more of a design focal point with wallpaper or painted patterns or trim work. And in a similar vein, you can think about mixing some patterns here and walls and ceilings if you want something more dynamic. The bottom right is I think part of a bedroom. Or like a dressing room situation where all the bookcases and cabinetry is painted out, same color as the walls. And then they did like a high gloss finish on the ceiling, which is really fun and really beautiful. And then we've got some wallpaper treatments. There's like a fun kind of starburst pattern, a plaid. And in this plaid ceiling, they kind of like took it down from the ceiling to the walls a little bit. So thinking about that like ceiling border. Yeah. Kind of fun to think about that again. Or there's some fun trim patterns in some of these images too. So this is a little bit more of a commitment. You're probably going to have to outsource it. You could certainly try, but then maybe save your shoulders, like working
wallpaper on a ceiling,
or on a ladder.
Trying to put like wainscoting type situations up there. Like that kind of stuff is going to be a little challenging.
So this is we're getting into like a real commitment. Commitment here. But if you love to make a statement and you're like, I've got good color in my home, like my pieces are really fun, but I like to stay relevant. I want to do something new. I want to spice it up a little bit. Like think about treating your ceiling a little bit differently.
Textures and patterns
Mhm.
and things like that. If you're like nervous about trying to pull in,
Mm-hmm.
that fifth wall, good space for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we're all kind of tired of like the textured popcorn
Oh yeah.
ceiling, so this is kind of like the new iteration of that. Of instead of doing something that you're trying to ignore, like draw a little more attention to it.
Yeah. And if that's part of what you have, that's why like having somebody
Mhm.
come in and help you. 'Cause
Yes.
scraping all that
Yeah.
and just like figuring out how to
Mm-mm.
make that happen is probably going to be harder for the average
And messy.
homeowner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly. Okay. You ready for our fourth and final?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is like texture on the walls. So textured walls are certainly trending up. We're looking for something a little bit more interesting. Something that's been very, very popular for probably the last couple of years is this like plaster treatment or Roman clay, which was popularized by a brand called Portola Paints. And it's this like paint plaster mix that gives you this like marbled faux finish on your walls. So the two photos on the left are this like Roman clay, almost like think like a lime wash.
Yeah.
Like a lime wash is a
Yep.
very technical
Yeah. We got a picture of a
process.
bathroom and like,
Mhm.
what is this? Probably
A
like
hallway
into a
into-
hallway
yeah,
into a
to a
living
family
space.
room,
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that kitchen maybe?
Yeah. So it's kind of a cool, like if you are a little bit of a DIY person, this is certainly something you could DIY. It does require a specific type of paint, a
Mhm.
specific type of brush, but you can be really like haphazard with it. You just kind of like haphazardly take this big bristly brush back and
Mhm.
forth, and you have to go over it with a couple of coats, but it creates this really interesting look on the wall. It does create like a tiny bit of texture, so that's why this is more of a commitment. You could certainly paint over it, but you're going to have like not that smooth drywall
Right.
finish.
So that's
after.
probably why you've got it here in the bottom of the list,
Uh-huh.
because that commitment that you're
Mhm.
making is
It
going to be
reminds
harder.
me
for-
of, I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember this, but there was suede paint back in the day. It
Mhm.
kind of reminds
Mhm.
me of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I had that. I did that in my bedroom.
We
when
did it
a
in our bedroom too.
Design choice. It was like two separate rollers that would dip in two separate colors of paint.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was purple on purple, which was a choice.
That sounds good. Hilary, I want to see that. Yes.
But similarly to wanting a little bit more character, we're looking for more charm. We're going back to more traditional treatments with more intricate trim work and even wood paneling, if you can
Mhm.
believe it. But it's this like correction from being like super
Overly, yep.
clean, super minimal. We're the Marie Kondo of it all. We like stripped everything
Mhm.
out, and now it's like, okay, maybe we do want a little charm, a little character. And it certainly elevates the home. So there's lots of different trim detail here, like this one kind of entryway, like they have the trim going around this massive piece of art that's really cool and interesting. Trim work on the ceiling, some wood paneling. Another trend I'm really into, and I've done this myself in a more subtle way, is contrast trim. So
Mhm.
rather than painting your trim white, you paint it in a contrasting color. We took most of our home into like a creamy white, and then we did like a taupey brown grayish on all of our trim. And so it's like subtle, but it's just like a nice touch to the home. And like this color is like staying much cleaner than like white.
trim. Yeah,
Mhm.
white trim is.
Yeah, you're gonna magic eraser to death.
Yeah.
To keep that clean. But this contrast trim is like really, really fun if you're looking for a way to spice things up a little bit. So yeah, fourth and final wall treatment trend for you.
It's a great one. I love like
Mhm.
seeing all these pictures, and every time that you walk us through these trends, I feel like I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking to people who ask about these things. So
Yeah.
thanks, Hilary.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask you, of course, if you're hypothetically speaking, you're wanting to shake things up a little bit, freshen up some walls in your home, which one would you go with?
Becca, you're like actively planning. Right?
Yeah, we are gonna like in our bedroom
Mhm.
gonna do some wall trim and ceiling treatment stuff. So
Mhm.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know yet if I'm gonna do like an accent wall with wallpaper or like
Mhm.
a paint color, but it's gonna be like way different than it is now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's fun. And
I'm excited.
the wall trim
Yeah.
is like there's like trends within that, but it's certainly a classic.
Yeah.
A classic timeless application
Yeah.
that you won't regret.
For me, I don't know. I feel like saturated paint colors
Mhm.
probably. I've moved into a newish house here relatively. It's been 2.5-ish years. So we've got some walls that we have not finalized and some
Mhm.
rooms that we have not finalized yet. So
Mhm.
like definitely I think looking at paint colors and kind of
Yeah.
finalizing some of that is the easiest place for us to start and then process and look
Yeah.
at some of these more exciting ones. Maybe it leans into some of the color drenching,
Yeah.
but like we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Start with the walls and
Yeah.
then decide. You can always add more.
Practical.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thanks again, Hilary and Becca, and to our producers, Scott and Ann, and to our fun and faithful listeners. Hey, have you checked out nfm.com/podcast lately? Because that is a great place to find all of our podcast content, as well as to ask us whatever questions that you have and that you want to see us potentially answer on the show. So check that out. And we'll wrap as we always do. Remember, home is what you make it.
Thanks for joining us today for I Am Home with Tyler Weisskopf, Hilary Waltemath, and Becca Sudbeck. No one knows home quite like NFM. So if you'd like more information on home design at NFM, please check out nfm.com and leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice.